Hi, this is Shaun, and welcome to Introduction to UDK Part 2. In this video, I'm going to go over different data types, and I'm going to talk about how to add meshes, lights, and other content from the content browser, as well as duplicate your objects, build your level, and look at some of the object properties. So let's get started. So I've cleared out the previous video, and I've just created a very simple level here. And we need to add some objects to this level from the content browser. So again, Control Shift F or click on this icon. And UDK building meshes. So if you take a look at these meshes, they sort of specify there's like names for each of these meshes in this content browser, and you can also sort of change the size of how they look in the content browser. One of the things to also take a look at or look for is, do they have collision or not? By default, these objects should have collision. In this case, this object does not have collision. That means the player would walk through this object. So let's bring this onto the screen. We can just sort of click and drag. They've made it so that you can click and drag these objects onto the screen in sort of a sandbox fashion. And also, as I mentioned before, making sure that they connect to the floor is easy if you just hit the end key. So let's we're dragging these objects onto into the scene. In terms of what kind of objects these are, I mentioned that there's different object types in UDK. If you double click on an object, or if you select the object and hit F4, it will open up the object properties, and at the very top you'll always see what it is. So in this case, a static mesh. It's a static mesh actor. Everything that's in UDK is sort of considered an actor, and there's all sorts of properties for these different actors, how they're rendered, do they collide, what do they collide with, and they all have to do with, a lot of it has to do with optimizing, how the game talks to the engine. And static meshes basically are static. They don't move, and they potentially can collide with the actor, with the characters, or with other objects. But for the most part, they're not dynamic or anything. They don't respond to gravity or anything else like that. So let's talk about other objects that we can make in here. If you right-click, you can convert these objects, some of these static meshes, to different types. You can convert this one, in fact, to a K-actor, and that's a physics object. A mover is an object that you can potentially animate, add keyframes to. And then there's some other objects that we'll talk about later. Let's convert this to a K-actor. So now if we looked at the object's properties, you could see this is a K-actor now, and if we say wake on level start, that will apply the physics simulation as soon as the level starts. So let's just give that a test. But before we can play this, we should probably add some lights, because I've created a default level that was completely empty. Lights are also considered actors in UDK, and so this is a great time in the content browser to introduce you to all of the potential actor classes. So in the content browser, in the second tab, here are all the actor classes. You can see there's potentially crowd simulations, there's fluid, fog, physics, pickups, vehicles, wind, static meshes. So in this case, we want to add some lights. So here there's a class of lights. There's point lights, directional lights. A lot of this should be very similar if you're familiar with the different light sources in Maya. One of the things that's easy in terms of a UDK is adding point lights. There's an actual keystroke. If you hold down the L key and click, it should generate a light in your scene. Which it just did. And now I'm going to move that light up, and it should dynamically light the scene. Now I also wanted to show you how to duplicate objects in UDK. If you hold down the Alt key while you're dragging, that's the same as duplicating an object. So you can do that with lights as well. So now if we tried playing this level, nothing's lit. So what's going on exactly? It says lighting needs to be rebuilt. Paths need to be rebuilt. So one of the things that happens when you add lights to the scene is that the scene needs to bake in the lighting solution a lot of the time, unless, for example, you have dynamic objects, which will take the light dynamically, and so it will calculate the light each second. Everything else the engine will try to optimize the lighting solution for. So what do you need to do in order to calculate your level? Well, that's where this comes into play up here. This set right up here of icons. So a lot of the time when you make changes, you'll rebuild the geometry, or you'll rebuild lighting, or you'll rebuild paths, and we'll get into that later, or you'll rebuild all. So in this case, we probably can just rebuild the lighting. I'm going to go with the default here. There's also, while this is calculating, there's also different lighting qualities that you can sort of calculate. And there's like draft quality and production quality. And since this is a simple scene, it should calculate rather quickly. Okay, so this is done, and you'll get some errors on this map check. Paths need to be rebuilt. We'll have some other sort of errors that kill zones need to be set. But for now, we're going to leave that, and we're going to play this level from here. So you can see the physics object coming into play. It falls when the level starts. We can walk through this object, but we can't walk through these objects. Okay, alright, so that's it. Let's wrap up this video, and we'll get into some more of the other properties of objects in the next video. Thanks for watching.